Welcome to the Front Office Exchange, where we take a look at the careers of executives and rising stars within the sports business. Now here's your host, Jake Failing.
Welcome to episode 6 of the Front Office Exchange podcast. Our guest today is J.W. Cannon, Senior Project Lead for Sponsorship and Events for UPS in Atlanta and co-founder of the popular hashtag SBChat on Twitter. I was introduced to JW by a mutual friend in the industry, but I was familiar with him before that through his very popular, the aforementioned SBChat hashtag on Twitter. Every Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, he and co-founder Lou Imbriano lead an engaging back and forth with followers on the hottest topics in sports business, hence the SB. It's a must for anyone in the industry. JW has led a diverse career between events, agencies, and now one of the top companies in the world, UPS. He offered perspective throughout our conversation on each of those corners of the sports business industry, while also giving advice on everything from how to pitch him to how to get his attention if you're looking for a job right out of school. JW was a blast to talk to. We had a great conversation. He was super engaging and down to earth, an executive who genuinely loves to give back to the sports business community. I think you'll really enjoy this episode. So without further ado, J.W. Cannon with UPS and hashtag SBChat. All right, JW, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You just finished up another round of SBChat over the weekend. We're taping this on a Tuesday, and you run those every Sunday night, correct?
I do. It's done in partnership with my good friend Lou Imbriano, who runs a venture capital company and was the former CMO of the Patriots. We started this about 5 years ago, and it's done in an effort to bring the sports business community and Twitter all together to discuss issues that are relevant to the industry, whether it be best practice, whether it be current events that are going on, and it's an opportunity for veterans as well as kids that are growing up in the industry to learn something and participate in the conversation.
Now, it looks like you started that, you said it was about 5 years ago, but you started that in conjunction. Was the timing just coincidental when you started at UPS, or was that something that you did purposefully when you started that new role?
Well, there were a lot. It had nothing to do with UPS, but it was coincidental that there were 3 major life changes that were going on at that time. I was starting a new job. We were starting SBChat, and I actually did the very first SBChat from the hospital room while waiting for my 5-year-old to be born. A lot of things going on at the same time.
So isn't that how it always works? A million life changes all at once, just to make life as difficult as possible?
Oh, of course, but you got to roll with the punches. We work in an industry that's ever changing, and one of my old bosses once said the only thing that's consistent is change. So we've got to roll with it.
No kidding. So how has that, over the last 5 years, SBChat, I wanted to start here because I think that's how a lot of people in the industry, you've obviously built a huge network over your career, but you mentioned those kind of up-and-coming sports executives. If you monitor that chat any Sunday night, you'll see a lot of aspiring executives, people who, look up to you into the industry or looking to make a change. So is that how it's always been, or has it evolved over the last few years?
It has evolved a little bit, and I think in a good way. I think, Twitter, to a certain degree, for a lot of people was a fad from an executive level. And the people who have lasted through these past 5 years, and even beyond that, when Twitter kind of came to rise, those people are invested in it as a medium. They see the value in it. Ones who were in the beat maybe saw it as a fad and tried it and didn't like it, and it's kind of moved on. So you used to have a lot more older people and more experienced people in there. What I'm really seeing now is a lot of young people who are in the industry looking at it as a real opportunity to have an in-depth conversation with those who want to be there. And I think that's actually a really good thing, honestly, because it helps weed out the people who were just using Twitter because it was the cool thing to do.
Right. Now, how has it helped you career-wise? Now, obviously, you've built a very successful career, but you're now 5 years into this. You're clearly invested, and I see you on Twitter often. I see you're obviously very active during the chat. How has it helped your career, or how have you leveraged it?
Well, I mean, to me, it's a real-time finger on the pulse of not just what's going on in the industry, but the world in general. And it's a great way to consume information in, as long as you understand how to manage it, it's a great way to consume information in the manner that you see fit. And I think that's really where it's benefited me. I mean, Lou and I do not make money off SP Chat, so we don't charge people to attend. We don't charge for sponsorships. We don't do any of those sorts of things. We do it because we think it provides a value back to the industry. And so for me, I think it's been a fantastic way to see what's going on in the industry, learn from other people's perspectives, but also just to get FaceTime with people that I otherwise wouldn't talk to or ever meet, and gain information and gradually just build your network over time. I mean, to me, we are in a people-driven industry because a lot of people look very similar on paper, and this has been a great way to kind of make a personal connection with a lot of folks that I otherwise wouldn't have talked to. And I've made some great friends, have made some great business contacts. I've done business with a lot of folks that I've met through this particular channel, and it's been really, really great to see how it's grown and also the value it's provided.
Do you have any fun stories? You mentioned some business that you've done, some people that you've met. Anyone, any story that stand out to you?
Well, a very easy one. This past summer, I was invited to speak at a conference in Australia, of all places. And wow. I never would have made that connection just through LinkedIn or through any of the standard networking channels. It was all done under the guise of the work that I'd done in the social media space in sports business. And so it's just a great example of how it provides really meaningful connections.
Have you used it? You've got to have used it for selfish reasons as well over the years. You know, litmus test or feeling out the market on something that you're working on, maybe at UPS or another project you're potentially considering. Oh,
absolutely. I mean, you use it as an opportunity to promote the things that you're working on. It was one easy way to do it. But you're right. I think also a great, very fertile test to kind of get your finger on the pulse of how people may feel about an idea in real time. So definitely.
Right. So has social media, I know it hasn't been around much earlier than in 2011, at least peak social media as we know it today. But were you always an early adopter even before your current role?
I was. In fact, going back to my last job, how I got kind of started in it was how a lot of people got started in it. Somebody was in a meeting and said, hey, I want to kind of figure out this social media thing. Who wants to volunteer to do it? And I raised my hand and said, I'll do it. And, lo and behold, I ended up writing the first enterprise social media strategy for what at the time was ING. It's now Voya. And it was all built around sponsorships that we had in the endurance running space. And so I've always been, I've always had curiosity about technology. I've always tried to buy the latest iPhone or the latest hot tech toy that's out there to experiment it and see how
Sure.
I might be able to use it in my personal life, but also in my business life as well. And that's just an example how I think social media has grown. That's how people got involved in it. Now it's become a much more strategic discipline as you've had a lot of people get involved in it, get degrees in it. You've had a little bit of people who have had time put against it. So, yeah, I think it's been fantastic for me though.
So you've got a really diverse career, obviously, and I wonder if we could just go back to the beginning, and we can move quickly, high level, and I'll jump in and interrupt you about any transitions, things like that. But can you walk us through how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I've kind of done a little bit of everything, as you've taken note of in my career. I was an athlete at James Madison. I thought, very early on that I was going to go into in-campus recreation. When I stopped playing sports, that seemed to be a natural progression for me. It was a job that I had on campus and started going down that path. And lo and behold, right before I was about to graduate, I decided I was about to take a graduate assistantship in that space. decided, you know what, I should do an internship in the sports business space. I'm getting a degree in this particular discipline. I should do something there to see what it's like. And ended up doing an internship with an agency at that time, was Advantage International. It's now become Octagon, and decided that was my calling. So basically gave up the previous 3+ years of my life and time spent in my education to go off into the business world. And I could say I've never looked back. I started in a sales role, selling sponsorships for the Georgia Games, which is still one of the top state games organizations in the country. I've worked in small business, so helped bring European clients over to the United States to help them set up operations, doing everything from registering them to the Secretary of State to actually running complex distribution and sales and marketing strategies for them, to shipping the actual products out the door and managing their warehouse. So we did a number of things there. From there, I decided I wanted to kind of do some bigger things, and ended up going back to my agency roots at Octagon. And I happened to be the very first hire on a brand new account team that they had with the Home Depot. And the very first project that I worked on was what has now become one of the industry standards from a sponsorship standpoint, was ESPN College Game Day, built by the Home Depot. So I was there from the very beginning of that. And in the 5 years that I spent at Octagon, I worked on everything from Major League Baseball to NFL to entertainment to Major League Soccer, basically everything that they did except for NASCAR, even foundation and pro-focused events, did a number of different things. And we mapped out strategies, mapped out activation for them, helped decide on what direction they should go with their sponsorship platform. It was kind of a golden era of sponsorships at the Home Depot. From there, I also spent some time on the agency side working on Bank of America and Autotrader.com, but I really had the itch to try the brand side of things, and I was presented with an opportunity when an old colleague came calling to come join her on the brand side, working with ING and managing their global marathon partnerships, their global F1 program, their corporate events, and NCAA sponsorships over time, and spent a good almost 4 years there before just being in the right place at the right time and being able to come in and build the college program over here at UPS.
So talk to me a little bit about the differences, kind of the core differences between working for an agency, working for a brand. You spent time with some properties as well, some events. Working in sports in a lot of ways is working in sports, but is there a difference in the pace? Is there more fulfillment working on the brand side rather than bouncing around between a couple of clients?
Well, I'll start off by saying that there's no goods and bads to both. I think it's all dependent on the person, and I know that's kind of a fluffy answer, but it's true because it really depends on what somebody is looking for. But there are some very distinct differences. Pace is one that you've noted. The agency environment tends to be a lot more flexible. It tends to be a lot more fast-paced. You tend to have a little bit different work-life balance just based on the nature of the work and being beholden to working for a client. Whereas on the brand side, comes a little bit more security, a little bit more office politics to work with, but you tend to have a little bit of a different work-life balance as well. And it really depends on what people are looking for. If somebody is really desiring that fast-paced, jet-setting, kind of get on a plane style of life, the agency life might be for them. But if they're looking for something that they can make a career out of, the brand side might be something that's more fitting for them.
Right. You talked a little bit about right place, right time. Were you recruited to UPS, or how was that process kind of moving in between these big agencies and brands?
In all honesty, I've never been actively recruited for any job that I've had, and I've never applied online through the black hole of resumes to find a job. Every job that I've gotten has been because I've been at the right place at the right time and flexible enough to take advantage of that opportunity, and because I knew somebody that had that position to offer. And that's the God-honest truth. So In the cases of ING and UPS, I happened to know somebody that was in a position to be able to hire folks, and they were gracious enough to think of me and came in and interviewed for it and ultimately ended up getting the job.
And with the Atlanta area, were you tied there? Have you always looked to stay there? I know you've grown your career there as well. So there's that side. And then two, just in general, how is the sports marketing, sports business landscape there in Atlanta?
Oh, it's very strong. I mean, you've got one of the top sports councils in the entire country with the Atlanta Sports Council, which recruits a ton of big events here every year. As you can see, it started off with the Olympics, but we've hosted Super Bowls. We're going to host another one here very soon. We've hosted Final Fours. Basically, every big event that can and has happened in the sports business realm has occurred here in Atlanta, which is great. So that means you've got a pretty large support network here to actually support that, whether it be in the world of agencies or whether you have brands that support it. You've got I forgot what the number is, but I think we're the fourth or fifth largest city in the country that is host to Fortune 500 brands. So you've got a ton of activity here in the sports space, a ton of brands that invest in it, and thus you've got the infrastructure to support that as well.
Looking back over your career, were there any turning points, decisions you've made, either that you said, hey, this launched me to where I am today, or maybe one that you've even regretted?
I'll be honest, that decision, my decision came very, very early on, thankfully. And to me, that was the decision that I made to completely change the direction of the career path that I ultimately ended up choosing and going away from campus recreation or informal recreation into business. It hadn't even really been a thought. And I'd invested a lot of time, a lot of sweat equity, and was about ready to go take a graduate assistantship. And I said, you know what, I want to try something different, see if it works. And thankfully it has, and I haven't looked back since then. So I look really back to that as my major turning point in my career.
You got a lot of people that are also making that same decision, and I think naturally one of the defaults is I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go back and get my master's of sports administration. What do you say? Because I'm sure you get that question all the time. In fact, probably every Sunday. What do you say to either those just now getting into the industry or maybe looking at making that career change at 27, 28 years old?
To me, getting an MBA is a very personal decision. The one thing I would encourage, or to getting a master's or an advanced degree, particularly in sports administration, the one thing that I would say is do it for the right reasons and make sure you're doing it. You're doing it to either fill a gap in your knowledge base or to make additional connections, and not because you're afraid to go out into the real world. I think far too often people use as an excuse either they started their job search late or they're not doing very well in their job search, and they use it as a default excuse to continue doing something. I don't know that that's a viable reason to actually go out and get a master's. Hey, it's a lot of money, and I don't know that you're going to learn anything different if you're going into it with your eyes closed like that. So to me, I think you have to know the reasons that you're going back, and it should be for those reasons I mentioned before. That's you're getting additional knowledge that you don't already have, or you're making some connectivity within the industry that you don't already have.
Okay. What are you most proud of in your career, or even right now what you're doing at UPS?
I'm proud of the work that we do at UPS, although what we do is not as forward-facing as what you see from a lot of these the consumer brands today. We're not an in-your-face type of activation brand. But if I look back on my career, I honestly believe that ESPN College Game Day is going to be one of those things that I can always hang my hat on just to see how far that has come and how it's evolved. And frankly, that the Home Depot has stuck with it for so long, and to see how much in the industry has been modeled off of it. I feel very proud that, I remember that day when my boss came and dropped this folder full of a bunch of schematics and a contract and said, what do you think of this? Let's start to build this thing out. And I can honestly look back at that moment and feel really proud just to see how far it's become.
You've obviously touched a lot of things in the industry. You see a lot of things, again, with SB Chat and everything like that. When you look out into the sports industry, as it relates to marketing or even sales, activation, things like that, who in the industry do you think is doing it right? And obviously, I know you want to say yourself and you want to say your group, but is there any brand, any property out there that you look at on a pretty regular basis and say, wow, they are killing it right now?
To me, there are some that are very, very personal to me because they operate in the same space, and they may not be the names that come to mind that a lot of people would think of. I think naturally people are inclined to focus on consumer brands like Under Armour and Nike and State Farm, et cetera. But to me, I think the ones that I get interested in are the ones that operate in the B2B space, and it's folks like IBM and like SAP who have a very different perspective on how to leverage sponsorships. They're focused on integration of their product and showcasing their thought leadership and their technology and their prowess in technology. And to me, I think I look more highly upon those folks, no offense to the consumer brands of the world, but right. I think those guys are doing a fantastic job of really positioning their brand to a very small subset of the broader sports business audience and doing it really, really well.
Now let's take that down to the people side of things. What are you seeing on SB Chat or just in the industry in general among those at the executive level, among those just coming out of college, that people how people are positioning themselves best, or is there just something that's driving you insane that you see, whether it's a resume or how someone positions themselves?
Well, to me, I see a lot of I interact with a lot of salespeople in my job, and we get pitched on average. For me, it's at least 3 to 5 times a day, just personally. 3 to 5 times a day. Yes, either it's a phone call, an email of some type, and that's not counting things that we get through our online system. We're on average getting over 100 proposals a week in any given week, and that's actually kind of low given some of the organizations I've worked for in the past. So I get to see a lot of the tactics that people are using, and to me, it's still a very old-fashioned discipline. I think that we are in such a different era. You think about how digital marketing has evolved, which it's becoming a much more personalized medium. It's becoming one where you have to kind of personalize the approach to make it relevant to the consumer. But I don't feel like the sponsorship sales process has kind of followed along that way. And what they should be doing, to me, is better personalizing their approach. I think a lot of people talk about what they could do, but they're not investing a lot of time and sweat equity and research in the upfront in developing something that captures the intention of the people they're selling to. They basically throw out a template. They basically throw out the opportunity to do X. But to me, when you're having to sift through that many proposals, it's tough for us to actually effectively evaluate that and make decisions on it. So to me, I think I would love to see salespeople personalize their approach a lot more and really do their research and trying to understand what brands are trying to accomplish before they actually present something.
So any chance I could put you on the spot for like a real life example here? I mean, what is going to catch your attention the most? Let's say I run an event. I've got a giant, half marathon that's gonna, it's the top half marathon in Dallas, let's say, and I'm trying to get your attention. What is it that's going to catch your eye? Just like with resumes, it's going to make it jump out to the top.
To me, the ones that jump to the top of the pile that we give a second look to are the folks that show that they've done their research. I always say, like, if you want to know what keeps me up at night, just read our annual report or read our quarterly earnings statement, because odds are that has its trickle-down effect to how we operate as well. So if you want to know what I'm trying to accomplish, the tools are there for you. You just have to read them, and you have to show that you're reading them. And so to me, the ones that cut through the clutter are the ones that show that they have an understanding of what I'm trying to accomplish from a business standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from a communication standpoint, and that they have positioned the tools that they have at their disposal to help me meet those goals. And you're not always going to get it right. In fact, I'd say more than often you're going to get it wrong. But at least it shows me that you have a stake in the outcome, that you're not just trying to sell to get rid of inventory, that you're legitimately trying to build a partnership and help us meet our business goals through your property.
See, I think when you said the homework thing, I thought you were going to hammer me there. Like, hey, you should have read UPS doesn't do any road races. We don't do half marathons. Nice try. So that's great advice, I think, to sales executives out there. What about advice just in general for someone looking to launch their career, pivot in their career, or make a wholesale change in the sports industry? What do you like to see in candidates, in resumes, just in general?
I mean, to me, resourcefulness is a big trait, and that's not an easy one to quantify, nor is it one that you really learn. But to me, you could have the greatest resume in the world. I like to look at the journey of how people get to you, right? So how did they find you? How did they get in contact with you? What was their journey to get there? And I like to look at the ones who do some heavy lifting and actually do some research up front to show that they care about the position, about you as an individual. So to me, I mean, that's actually very apparent when people come. So it'll stand out in their cover letter. It'll say, hey, I noticed this, and this is how I can help meet that goal. I know that you have a background in this, and therefore I know a little bit about that, and we have something in common. To me, just like the sales process, if you show that you're doing a little bit of research, that will go a lot longer way than just continuing just to send out resumes with your skill set. And to me, those stand out a little bit more than just a general resume.
Got it. And now what about you personally? There's going to be executives that are listening to this that would be theoretically peers of yours in the industry. What do you do in terms of professional growth? Whether it's social media, I think that's an obvious answer that you'll have, but outside of that as well, books, podcasts, things you read, people you look up to, mentors, things like that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a self-proclaimed media junkie. I'll admit that I have a voracious appetite for information. So you've probably heard of RSS feeds. Not a lot of millennials have heard of that, but yes, people still use them, and I still have one that pulls.
Wow. I was going to say, didn't Google shut that down? Didn't they have some great deal several years ago that they shut down? And there was a corner of the world that just lost their minds. Were you one of those?
I was one of those, but I was able to find a replacement for that. And, that serves to me as to just to aggregate all the information that I read on a daily basis into one place. I have over 300 different sources that I scroll through daily to see what's going on in the world. But I also watch the news. I read books. I read magazines on a regular basis. So odds are, if I'm outside of work and I'm not doing one of those things, then I'm probably sleeping. So, but I like to consume information in general because to me, I like to know what's going on in the world, and I like to understand how it can benefit me in my personal life as well as in my work life. And the only way to actually do that is if you constantly have your eyes and ears open as to what's going on in the world.
You seem like you've got a lot of drive and are resourceful, but anybody along the way help you get to where you are today?
I've had a lot of them, but I will say that my very first boss on the agency side, Mark Crepeau, really taught me how brands think and how to apply that to my trade. I don't think I really had a true understanding of how to market in the corporate world until I took that agency job, and I learned a lot about what it means to drive strategy, how to properly set up strategy with your client, what the timing is involved, how to read a room properly and read what's important to people. And I thank him every day for giving me the opportunity that he did when I came over to the agency side, not having a lot of the traditional background as a lot of the other people who were applying for that position. And I can say he's probably been the one biggest mentor for me in the industry.
Great. And I know we talked about the differences, but, for those that are listening, you'll have some that want to go the agency route, some that want to go the brand route. Are there one or two things, high level, that you'd recommend to both of those groups of people, just in terms of what to expect?
Well, on the brand side, since that's the most relevant to me at this time, learn office politics and how to play them. I often say that being on the brand side is a lot less about managing projects than it is people and personalities and politics. So learn and understand that going in, that you're going to be taken less out of the direct project management role and be put into more of a business management role. And it's a very different pace for people who aren't used to that. So that's the thing I would tell you to look out for there. On the agency side, the one piece of advice that I would offer is be flexible. And what that means is at some point you're going to hit a glass ceiling as it relates to your account team. So if you're an account manager and you want to be promoted to account director, there's only two ways that really happens. Your client's willing to pay more, or you're willing to move to a different account. And so if you're not flexible enough to try and take advantage of those opportunities, which may require you to move to a different city or to do something different, you're going to lose out. So I would encourage those who are on the agency side to make sure that they're flexible in their arrangements if they want to continue to grow their career.
That's great. That's great advice. So other than teams substituting numbers for letters on T-shirts, which I saw was a recent tweet from you today, anything else out there in the industry right now that just drives you crazy, for people that are saying, let's throw something against the wall, see if it sticks, or ideas? Anything else other than that?
The one thing that kind of upsets me, and this is something that's been going on with social media for a long time, is the inability for certain groups within the space to accept that other opinions exist in the world. It's tended to be it's been a very volatile environment, social media has, and it's been a very nasty one for the past couple of years. And the whole idea of social media is to be social, to be open, not to be closed-minded. To me, I think you need to be willing and accepting of other people's viewpoints. And you think about some of these issues that have come up recently, from Simone Biles to Ryan Lochte to what's going on now with Colin Kaepernick and his position. You may not agree with everybody's position on there, but social media has become so nasty to a certain degree that people are just unwilling and unaccepting that other viewpoints exist. And I think that's kind of hurt the dialogue, honestly, because it hasn't created room for actual dialogue in the middle. All you hear are the really volatile points on either end, and I don't think that's a good thing for our industry or for the world in general.
Do I take that as you've been getting hate tweets the last 4 or 5 hours about T-shirts?
No, I have not been getting hate T-shirts about. But I have engaged. I'm a big believer in engaging in dialogue, right? But I see that.
No, I see that. Yeah.
And I get a good amount of disagreement dialogue that can get rather nasty at times, and it's because people are so entrenched in their viewpoint. I'm willing to accept the fact that sometimes we just agree not to agree, and other people are not so accepting of that. I wish that they were, but unfortunately social media, to a certain degree, has created an environment where tensions can flare up relatively quickly, and people aren't willing to actually engage in a conversation about things. It's not like the coffee shops where you could sit back and forth and just you walk away shaking hands.
Right.
Social media tends to be you state your position, I state mine, and it can get rather nasty from there.
I see the traffic on Sunday nights. I see you're up to 11,000 followers. Just curious, do brands or does anyone come to you ever, send you a direct message to say, hey, can we leverage this in any way? I mean, I know you said that you don't make any money on the chat, but over the last 5 years, have you seen potentially more opportunities to drive revenue with it?
I'm not going to lie. People have reached out, but I never really saw it as such. To me, I'm a believer that you get back what you give, and
Right.
to me, I've always seen it as a way to kind of have a dialogue about what's going on in the industry, share things that are on my mind, learn from others, not as a way to necessarily make money. So while I have been presented with some opportunities to do paid promotions or asking if I would tweet out certain things, I resist those opportunities, or I'll do them for friends that I care about.
Sure. Well, then I'll heed your advice if I ever get up to that level of Twitter fame.
Maybe that's to my detriment. Maybe my wife, if I told her I just told you that, she would feel a little bit differently. Right. But to me, I've never viewed Twitter as anything but a tool for me to engage with the industry and the rest of the world.
Great. So I'll just edit this out and then start with, well, that's very admirable that you turned down that 6-figure sponsorship deal, JW. So I'll come in right with this. All right. So we'll wrap it up here after a couple more questions. When we were talking before this started taping, so you've got a couple things going on right now at work with UPS. Do you want to touch on what's on the horizon for you?
Sure. I mean, we have college football rolling out here in the next week, and we've got some programs that you should be starting to see here around all of our various college partnerships as we kind of move forward. So that's great. Obviously, it's our busiest event season as well. Our group is producing a proprietary event with the TED Institute, TED at UPS, where we'll have a number of UPS speakers talking about these various thought leadership issues that face the world today. We'll be producing that in the next couple of weeks. And then obviously it's going into our busy peak season where the entire operation, including marketing communications, kind of all comes together as one to support the holiday season and making sure that everybody gets their packages safely and on time. So lots on our plate in the coming weeks for UPS. But long term, we're at a time where we need to think about the long term for our sponsorship and event platforms. Where's our business going? What's going to drive the behavior for business decision makers, not just 1 year from now, but 5 years from now? And how do we leverage the power of sponsorships and events to capture their attention and drive profitable business for us? So, I mean, even asking the question of whether it's the right medium for us, those are things that are always on my mind.
Interesting. You talk about events. I know all of your partners, all the events are of equal importance and no favoritism here. But I'm going to ask you, is there one event or one partner that you've worked with over the years that you just kind of hold in the highest regard? And then on the other side of that, is there one that is maybe on your sports business or just personal bucket list of, man, I would love to work in some capacity or just even attend as a fan?
Well, I will say,
does that exist anymore? Are you still able to be a fan at all?
It's
to
hard. It's hard, and my
Yeah.
my wife really hates going to games with me because I end up critical of signage, of in-game promotions, of I pick up every piece of paper that someone hands to me. I talk to every one of the.
I say we're the biggest nerds. We're the worst people to have at these things.
It's
right?
absolutely terrible. It's tough to enjoy a game anymore. But where I really do enjoy the games nowadays is not going to the games, but watching it on TV like a lot of people do. So, but you can be a fan in this industry if you're willing to stay grounded in it. And I think going back to your original question was, is there a property that I kind of hold in the highest regard? And the answer is yes. And it's an ironic one for me because it's the Dallas Cowboys. And, it's America's team. It's a big property. But they really understand how to connect to their partners and try and create ways to drive their business. And they charge a premium for that, but they're experts in it. They will put the weight of their entire organization behind it. And the reason it's really ironic is I grew up as a Redskins fan. We've had season tickets in my family for over 70 years, and the other ironic piece of that is that their stadium is sponsored by the biggest rivalry that I have from a company standpoint.
Not where I thought you would be going with this. Okay.
So it is a rather large, ironic partnership that I hold in high regard, and it shows that you have to kind of have to tune that fandom out a little bit in order to succeed in this industry. If you let your personal beliefs get too involved into your business decision making, then that'll hamper your career and ultimately the results of your platforms.
You mentioned Lou earlier, your partner in crime on SB Chat. Any other executives in the business that you either look up to or that you'd recommend people that listen give a follow on social media?
A couple of my favorite people that are very, very underrated in this industry, but have a lot to do with my mentality and how I kind of approach marketing challenges are people like John Spolstra, are people like Mike Veck, are people like Pat Williams. These folks, they may not have the most followers on social media. They've written some really fantastic sports business books, including Marketing Outrageously, Ice to Eskimos, just about how to really tap into the fan passion that exists in our industry. I think those are fantastic. They've been fantastic mentors for me to follow from afar, but they may not be the highest on everybody's list, I can imagine.
So other than Sundays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Twitter at #SBChat, where else can we find you on social media?
Well, you can follow me at CannonJW on Twitter as well as on Instagram. I'm also very easy to find on LinkedIn and would love to connect with fellow folks in the industry. I'm always trying to learn from other folks and connect with other folks, so feel free to find me there as well.
Sure. What about conferences? Do you have several that you hit pretty regularly? Is that a good place to find you?
I would say more recently, yes. But I'm not a big conference goer. I'm a big believer in individual one-on-one conversations. But I do think the SBJ conferences that they put together on a variety of different subjects are really, really fantastic ones, not just from a thought leadership standpoint, but from a networking standpoint as well.
Fantastic. Well, JW, I appreciate you taking the time today. It sounds like you're busy over there, the office politics in full swing, as you mentioned. But I think there were a lot of takeaways that either seasoned executives in the business or those right out of school looking for their first opportunity could take away. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Front Office Exchange, where you hear about the careers of some of the leading executives in sports business. Visit us at frontofficeexchange.com, on Facebook at Front Office Exchange, and on Twitter at Front Office EXCH to access past episodes, show notes, and much, much more.